SoundCartel.
From SoundCartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. Conforming to compliance requirements can seem overwhelming, but did you know you can use some of the tools you already have to simplify things? Managing Director of Cyber Matters, Saaim Khan, says that by adopting a measure twice, cut once mindset, you can streamline your approach to digital security and regulatory frameworks. Saaim is looking through a glass onion with Jeff Waters.
Think of it this way. 5 people attended a meeting where they said, these are all the things we should do to keep secure. Said 5 people left the meeting and each one went to their own desk and wrote up a little list of their own. One called it the list A, B, C, D, and E. And then all 5 of them published the same thing. And now we've got 5 lists asking for the same thing. The point is the origination of this, which is core hygiene. The way that we approach the concept of streamlining compliance, it's twofold. One is a bit philosophical, and then one is the actual implementation. From a philosophical perspective, I'd like you to imagine an onion. Think of it as concentric circles. So at the core of it sits you in your digital persona / data and what have you. And then that data interacts with different systems, whether it's a web-based system like an online app or a mobile app, or it's a set of applications on your computer. Now, all those apps, whether they're in the cloud or on your computer, even the ones on the cloud, they sit on some kind of device. So that's the third circle that I'm talking about. And all those devices need to be connected somehow, otherwise they can't talk to each other. So you have a network of those devices. So you got to think about your data. You got to think about the applications that data interacts with. You got to think about all the devices that those applications are hosted on. You got to think about the networks that those devices are connected on or connected through. Then you have to think about the people that operate all of those. So it could be you, it could be your staff, it could be your partners and whatever. And then at a larger zoom out, it's other networks like that. So your suppliers have a similar security onion. Your customers have a similar security onion or concentric circles. And you need to think about it in those respects. When you start thinking about it in those respects, or those aspects, you'll be able to start thinking about the things you can do. I'd like you to imagine a security onion, if you will, or rather, onion sounds a bit distasteful. Concentric circles. So circles within circles within circles.
How does this relate, however, to streamlining it within, or the compliance issues within your own business? I can see how it relates to security directly because of the relationship between all of these different systems and, places where that can be abused. But how do we go about streamlining?
That's the second part. Let's take this philosophical onion, if you will, and kind of try to slice it up. How do we slice it up? Or how do we, use it? Going back to what I had previously mentioned to you in our previous chat about using what you already have. For example, you're most likely using Microsoft 365, or you're most likely using some kind of Google equivalent of it, or Google Workspace. Within these platforms, you have the ability to see how your compliance with different things stacks up. This is something that's not going to cost you anything. And the streamlining aspect is because we talked about those 5 separate lists referring to the same elements, you can see that the controls you have in place for something would apply to all of those 5 different frameworks. That's the stuff that you can do without investing anything but maybe an evening or an afternoon or a week of your time into this. The other aspect, which is now becoming most prevalent, is to start using what are GRC platforms. GRC stands for Governance, Risk, and Compliance. And 5 years ago, these things were quite expensive. But thanks to the power of capitalism, market forces, whatever, I'm not an economist, so whatever the drivers of market are, these are now available almost at every budget, from a budget of zero to a budget of the hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. So based on your budget, you can pick a tool accordingly. Why am I talking about this GRC platform concept? Because this is what becomes your central repository of all of your compliance and security compliance initiatives. And you can use this to satisfy multiple requirements. So you do the effort once, but you can use that effort to justify questions you get throughout the year. If you're going down a certification pathway, it makes sense to go down the certification pathway, which is the most robust, because then all of the other ones, which are maybe a little less in their scope, if you will, automatically fall in through. I'll give you an example of data privacy and consent management. In Australia, you have a federal legislation that mandates data privacy. In Victoria, you have the Victorian Data Privacy Security Standard, the VPDSS. In New South Wales, you've got the New South Wales Privacy Act. In Queensland, you've got their own state legislation. And in WA, you've got your own state legislation. However, there is one called GDPR, which is the European Union's version of it, which is quite verbose and quite in-depth. By conforming to a higher standard, you are automatically making sure that if you ever did business in New South Wales, or if you ever did business in Victoria, or Queensland, or WA, or Tassie, or NT, or SA, the standard you have is so high that everything else conforms as a consequence. And a lot of people tend to look at these big standards and get a bit intimidated. But really, those standards are written to apply to a variety of industries. And in your specific context, it's actually not going to be that much. And there's a plethora of resources available online to kind of explain this to you in plain English. So these are just simple steps where you can use efficiency gains in, measure twice, cut once, use multiple times, that kind of approach. The standard or the quality of what you do it well the first time so that you can keep reusing it and conform to smaller scope programs. And at the end of it, there's access to experts. If you don't want to speak to a consultant, you don't have to now. You can literally go and search this up. YouTube, TikTok although I don't personally suggest using TikTok, but using YouTube or using LinkedIn Learning, there is so much content available for free now in a language and at a level that you may be comfortable with. So you don't need to go listen to some extremely technical consultant talking about things with jargons and acronyms. There are plain English versions available as well. And like I said, measure twice, cut once, use multiple times. That's how you make sure that you manage the efficiency and you streamline your efforts. You build the policies, for example, like if you have a security policy, a staffing policy, a data management policy, those policies can help you meet requirements across a number of different standards. So you do that once, but you can use it multiple times.
That was Saaim Khan, Managing Director of Cyber Matters. Business Essentials Daily is a SoundCartel podcast. Producers are Nick Schildberger, Jeff Waters and myself. Technical production by Pete Letts. I'm Nicole Goodman. Thanks for listening. We'll bring you more Be Daily next week.
Sound.